Hey guys, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Asher Au. Welcome to the Starting Million Show. So again, as usual, I'm excited. I'm happy because my next guest coming up is a friend of mine that I met some time back, and he's a very animated person. I mean, who else better than come up with this topic to talk about? It's about being on the topic of the on comedy, right? Because there's a lot of things we can talk about this particular topic, but I really believe in this. There's people say there's nature and there's nurture, but I do believe that when it comes to the topic of comedy, it is much more of a situation of nurture rather than being nature. Because imagine if a baby came out and got people laughing, it's quite scary. Anyway, so I just want to have a quick introduction of him in a while, but before that, let me just run my usual, what do you call that, opening. I'll see you in a bit.
You cut me loose and set me free. You cut me loose. You make me win in every way. Win in every way. You show me how to spread my wings. Yes, I'm the winner of the day. You cut me loose and set me free. You make me win in every way.
And my next guest coming up, his name is Stefanos. He's a presenter and content creator from Greece. As a NAS Academy trainer, he has taught hundreds of students and how to create content and succeed on social media. So comedy has been a huge part of his life, and he makes sure that his lessons are always infused with humor. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on Stefanos. Stefanos. Oh.
I was doing
man.
the postman thing, that just comes out and like goes up, goes down again. How are you doing, Asher?
Great, man. Great. Good to have you on the show. Thanks for scaring me there for a while. I was like, hey, what the heck, Stefanos?
Where did you go? He's in the toilet. Did I tell him when the show? He says, no, buddy. I got you. I got your back.
Okay. So, hey, Wyman, thanks for coming and joining in the show. And is my channel muted? Am I muted? Am I? I guess. I hope not, because you can hear me.
I'm very good at lip reading. So maybe you are muted.
Okay. I hope not. I really hope not, because that'll be quite odd if, let's say, if we're muted and then when I'm doing that movement over there, people are like, what the heck is he doing? It's just like...
But Asher, this is the most common thing now that we're doing all the Zoom meetings. People come in and the most common phrase I hear in Zoom is like, hey, you're muted.
Yes, exactly.
You're muted. And then they're talking, doing something like, hey, again.
Yeah.
You're muted. Yeah, you're muted.
Yes, yeah. All right. So, again, I want to appreciate you coming on to this show. I know that it's been a very stressful day for you, because just before we came on, Stefanos was just chatting with me on how things have been a little bit challenging, a little bit difficult, but he decided to come on anyway and have a chat with me. So I really appreciate him for coming on. So let's see. Oh my gosh, I was muted and dancing in silence. Oh my gosh, that's quite funny. Okay. I guess I'll try to have to fix that somehow or rather. Okay. In any case, enjoy my that's called miming, right? So I'm just...
We can just do that in silence. It's fine. It's
yeah. I'll just do that. Okay. So Stefanos. Okay. In this case, let's thank Jessica for letting me know that I was doing that. So want to get real quick, because I think to let people know about what you do, right? So perhaps that was comedy already. Just me doing my own thing. I thought it was music, but I'm just doing my own dance. And hey, good to see you, Jessica. Thanks for coming on. Okay,
hi, Jessica.
Hey. All right. So let's get in real quick, Stefano. So when it comes, I want to let people know a little bit more about you, right? So can you just share a little bit about yourself, and perhaps maybe a little bit about what kind of genre of comedy do you do?
So I've been a content creator for the past 6 years, and I've been working as a presenter in Greece. I'm from Greece, first of all. Hi. That's why you have this horrible accent. So I'm coming from Greece, and I was working there as a live presenter. I was working in YouTube. I had my own channel. I was working in different projects. And then I moved into the UK because I said, you know what? I don't want to be doing this in Greek anymore. And I began a new channel, and sooner than later, I found myself into the NAS Academy, where right now I'm a trainer alongside Asher. We are teaching together classes, and we have taught a class together, Asher, haven't we? So
yes, we have.
From the beginning of my career, I've been doing theater back on the day. I've been doing music, but everything had to do with comedy. I am a huge fan of comedy. I believe comedy is the best way to educate people. So my content is mainly educational, but it's comedy educational. It's comedy and education, comedy and education. So I'm just trying to blend these things together. I know, not very original. Many people are doing it, but hey, you know what? It's fantastic. So what genre of comedy am I doing? It's really hard to define the genre of comedy. Plus, by age and by influences, you definitely change the way you approach things, and it's different. When I was doing stand-up in Greece, when I was doing stand-up comedy in the UK, and when I'm doing my YouTube videos, it's a completely different type of comedy. But I would say I would nail it down to, there are many genres of comedy, but I think mine is closer to satire and surreal comedy. So satire has to do with discussing about current events and just taking the piece on them, pretty much. Just, explaining the situation and getting a little bit upset or making fun of situations. And surrealism, because I really like the type of comedy when you're talking extremely serious, you're dead serious, and you're talking nonsense. Just like the politicians in a way. Only with this time we're doing it for humor. We're doing it for fun. So yeah, it's more about this. I really, really, really like this type of comedy. But again, I've done sketches. I've done a lot of things. So I cannot say that I can pinpoint myself in just one genre of comedy. I don't know, Asher, where are you? You leave me alone. I don't know how to react.
Yeah, I will leave you. I'm just like quietly at the back. I was just listening in. Okay, so since you've been on stage a few times, and I think you have a lot of experience on stage as well, because I also came from the stage background before coming to join the team. But has anything, if I can ask you, when it comes to comedy, when you first started out and then where you're going right now, you're bringing comedy into your education, and I really believe that helps a lot to engage people to pay attention, because sometimes you're just one of the worst boring things is just have a lecture that keeps on rambling, and then you just it's already kind of hard in real life, and now you're doing it on a camera, on screen. You need to be much more fun, engaging, right? So it's tough. So maybe another quick question for you then, in that case, is has there anything, while in your experience of acting on stage and performing on stage, has anything actually embarrassing ever happened to you before? I know this is kind of like this, like a question. We want to make you look good, but making it look
bad. Well, I don't know if this it counts as embarrassing. I mean, I might disappoint a little bit. I have some very funny stories that happened while we were acting and we were doing comedy. But as far as I'm concerned, I remember. There is something that I didn't understand when I went to the UK. So I'm coming from a culture that we are quite direct. So if you want to insult me or you don't like something that I said, probably you're going to make it pretty clear, if you know what I mean. So when I was in the UK, I was doing my first or second stand-up gig. And there was a guy who was obviously drunk, because it's the UK. I mean, it would be offensive, like 9 p.m. and you're sober. And he started, talking with me while I was performing, which, of course, in my head, when somebody's giving you material, you go on. You're like, oh, you want that? Fantastic. That's exactly what I want. Even better. I'm going to make it even funnier. So, I started having a back and forth. To be honest, I had a lot of fun. So then, the show is over. And then, my friends came and I was like, oh, my God, what a jerk. I was like, why? What's wrong? This guy, that was so offensive. I mean, I'm so sorry for you. And I was like, what? And literally it was this moment that everybody in the room I just realized that the people were a little bit frozen. So they were feeling like there was a conflict. But in my eyes, and being from a culture that you either say it or you don't, just making implying things is like just like nothing, water under the bridge. Actually, I had a lot of fun. And then I realized how disconnected I was from this whole new genre of comedy. Just because I did comedy in Greece, that doesn't mean that I can do comedy in the UK. So humor is changing a lot from one location to the other, right? Mm-hmm. So that was a thing. But I have very nice stories from my theater days. So these ones, but they didn't happen to me, but they did happen in my group, if that is interesting. And if you want a really embarrassing story.
Well, if you feel inspired to share, we're here to listen. So So when it comes to being the stories that you've gone through, I like that when it comes to what you shared earlier, you talked about something that people thought was bad, and you turn it around. I think that's the beauty of comedy is like they are able to quote something that is touchy, that is sensitive with a bit of humor, so it's much more palatable. Something that people can actually understand. That's something I really like about comedy, and but it's also a skill. Do you think it's a skill, or is it something that you're born with?
Oh, everything is a skill. Everything can be learned. I mean, some people are naturally more funny, obviously, than others, but everything can be learned. And I feel that the biggest problem in professional comedy, I wouldn't call it professional comedy, in the people who want to turn professional. So if you're going to gigs and you see people who are striving to become professional comedians, I mean, this is the biggest problem. They think that because they're funny in the presence, in the company of friends, they can be funny on stage. And that's a very different kind of comedy. So when you are with friends, you are funny because you are relatable. Your friends know you, your friends understand you. So, you crack a joke and they're like, Asher, get out of here. But if you go on a stage with people who don't know you, just sitting on a chair, looking at you dead in the eye, being like, entertain me, that doesn't work. That will not work. So it's something that you need to learn. You need to learn how to structure it. You need to learn where to put the jokes. You need to learn where to put the narration, how to make it interesting. You need to learn how to not react to what's happening. People will be sneezing underneath. People will be eating popcorns. People will be haggling. So there are many, many things that can happen. Heckling, sorry, my English. So there will be many, many things that will be happening downstairs, then down in the stage. So you really need to take your time and learn. You really need to go through that process. But I guess this is why, especially in the UK, I love this. There are so many places that you can go and just practice your material. And then you sit down, talk with other comedians. Usually there's a frontliner. The frontliner will have some more experience. So you have a chat and you figure out what's happening. So everything can be learned. But in reality, the question everybody who is aspiring to be funny is this: why do I want to be funny? Okay, is it because I saw the other people and I feel that I will become more popular? Okay, there are other ways to be popular. Not all popular people are funny. So usually it's one of these things, Asher. I don't know if you ever felt it, that you see somebody who is, who is working as a lawyer, where you're kidding, like, I want to be a lawyer because I saw them and I really want to do that. And you haven't really thought, do you want to be a lawyer? So same thing. Do you really want to be the funny person? You have other values that can make you popular in your company of friends, in your environment, in your workspace. So it's not all about making people laugh. But if somebody really wants to laugh, then I think the best way to do so is to start understanding that things are not so serious in a way. And I read that also in Hermann Hesse, the writer, in the Steppenwolf, if I remember correctly, in the book. He says that people have this misconception of life. They think life is extremely serious, but you only have one moment. And in this moment, you should be laughing. I'm not quote unquoting, but this was the general idea. So when you start realizing that, things are okay, things are fine, then even your jokes come from a better place. So I can make a joke, about your glasses, about your hat or something. But if it comes from pressure, like, okay, I wanna make fun of you, it will not come across as funny. But if, we're having fun and I just want to relax you, to cheer you up, and I'm like, hey, look at you, man. I mean, to be honest, Asher, in almost all our meetings, you are coming as a cookie. So this is the fact. This is a fact, guys. I know those of you who are watching and you don't understand what we're talking about. Asher is coming in almost all our Zoom meetings as a cookie. He is using one of these filters in Zoom. So, and that's it. You make people laugh. It comes from from inside. It comes from a good place. I'm doing this because I want to relax the situation. So it comes more natural. And it's not about the punchline. Punchline is one way of comedy. But the point is to make people laugh, isn't it?
It is. I think it is true. That's very true. And sometimes I come as a cookie, sometimes I come as a banana. So it just depends on how I feel that day. But yes, so that's why I kid sometimes when I come onto different meetings itself, right? I'm now using my human skin. I'm really a banana. I'm really a potato inside. So, so Jessica did ask a question over here, and I thought I want to ask you this as well. Do you do impromptu?
So I've tried a little bit. I mean, there is a point in your stand-up that you'll have to do impromptu. It's not impromptu. Like, okay, give me a name, give me a place, give me a character. Impromptu is because you don't know what you're gonna face. So as I said, whenever I hear somebody talking or I see something in the crowd, I will start chatting about it. But impromptu in the way, all right, guys, just give me anything. Today the theme is fruits. Give me a vegetable, give me a fruit, and I'll just try to build up. No, and I've seen a few of impromptu comedies back in the UK when I was hanging out with the comedians and I was going left and right. It's a very interesting thing because most of them, I was like, yeah, again, they're missing the point. The point of impromptu comedy is not for you to gather around and have fun with what you are doing. It's for me as the viewer to have fun. And I feel this is being missed in impromptu comedy. But when I saw good impromptu comedy, I was stunned. I'm like, how do they do that? How many hours have they spent getting their mindsets in the same line, getting the mindsets together? And they were doing singing impromptu comedy. So they were singing comedy while acting comedy. How do you do that? So that was impressive. Yeah. I only saw that once. So I don't know. It's impromptu is not my cup of tea, I guess.
I think that was the first time I saw something like that was definitely on Whose Line Is It Anyway? That's a very good impromptu comedy show that is still blows my mind now how they can come up with something on the spot. And I think it was Wayne Brady who tends to do very well in the singing and coming up with lyrics on the spot. That was like, well, how did he do that? And it's actually funny. It's actually entertaining.
I no idea. If I knew, I would be them. I wouldn't be here. I will have more important things to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, then another one I want to ask is because you actually said a little bit earlier, when it comes to your experience, right? Okay. You've toured, you've actually gone to a lot of stuff, but maybe if I rewind the clock back a wee bit more, okay, so when you were a wee boy, can you just tell a little bit more about, when you're growing up yourself, right? How has comedy been a part of the life,
When did you turn Scottish? Like a wee boy.
Wee boy.
When I was a wee boy. All right, hen. Okay, so when I was a wee boy, I mean, comedy was always a big part of my life. I like to laugh, okay, and I like making people laugh. But I remember the moment that comedy blew my mind. Up until in the very young age, in Greek TV, we're having quite good films. So we're having comedy films, and boom, we just watch a silly comedy or something, and it was fine. And then suddenly, my father introduced me to the Monty Python. I was 12 or 13. And I don't know how many of you have watched Monty Python, but they have their own show. So it was a skit-based show, and they have a couple of movies as well. So I was introduced to the movie, to The Life of Brian, which is, let's say, the most popular film and the easiest for people to watch because they have a very particular way of humor. I mean, I can never blame anyone who doesn't like them. It's strange. So I remember I was watching The Life of Brian, and in the end, spoiler alert, close your eyes. You don't just go if you don't want to hear what's happening in the end. So in the end, when I saw that scene, I mean, I was laughing throughout the comedy. I was like, this is amazing. This is crazy. This is so surreal. And in the end, you have this scene. And remember, I was a little kid, so I'm not a very religious person, but The Life of Brian is about Christianity, and it's about a person who is born at the same time as Jesus Christ in Bethlehem, and then he lives in Jerusalem. So, and then I see this symbol of religion, all the people being crucified, one next to each other, singing the most chill song in the history of songs. And I was like, is this allowed? I remember that my question at this moment, I was just looking at it. My eyes had popped out, and I was like, this is hilarious. This is amazing. This is the symbol of suffering, the cross, the crucified. And they're singing Always Look on the Bright Side of Life all together, and they were moving their feet on the cross like that. And that was a big shock. And then I understood that, that's the point of comedy. The comedy is to challenge some things. And to be honest, even at that point, even now, many years afterwards, that I start to dissect comedy and see what type of comedy is insulting. The whole purpose is to insult. What is making a commentary, it's satire, and what is just using the symbols. I still believe that, especially in that scene, nobody should be getting offended from that, because it's not talking about anything in particular. It's talking about a historical event which is so far away from us. We're not crucifying people, I hope, anymore. It's so far away, and it's just making like a huge point. And I'm like, that's amazing. That's how comedy should be. You should be able to challenge that. So this is the moment that my whole perception about comedy changed. Needless to say that all the movies and all the flying circus episodes of the Monty Python followed after that.
Okay, so when you're comedy that way, I think if this day, if maybe it's a bit different, because another thing when it comes to comedy is also because it evolves with time, right? Something like that back then, I'm sure that there will be fans of it, there'll be haters of that. But if you did something of the same scale today in social media today, woo, it's gonna get fired upon, man. It's gonna get shot down so badly. It's how would you be able to touch on something sensitive like that in today's day and age?
I mean, first of all, like that. What do you mean by like that? Can you clarify to see the touching point here?
Like sensitive topics, like that situation is because like the religious stuff is very sacred. You tend not to touch. In fact, I tend to always avoid, for example, religious talk, anything that has to do with religious stuff or political stuff. So I'm always avoiding those as much as I can. But when it comes to a show like that, all right, how can you create something that's funny and not like terrorize some people and just like completely insult them?
Well, that's the thing. First of all, again, it's not a religious topic. That film was not a religious topic. It was taking pieces of religion in order to discuss to make a point. But it's not a religious topic. The jokes were not on religion. They were not on Christianity. They were more about how people were following religions back then. So it's more of a historical joke. And historical jokes are pretty safe, if you know what I mean. Because to be honest, Asher and my friends, we are animals. We just care about ourselves. So if you say something about my Greek culture, I will get offended. If you say something about, the Singaporeans, you will get offended. But if I say something about a nation that doesn't exist and I don't have ties, I don't get it. And it's not that I don't get it because I'm a bad person, just it doesn't sink in. So historical jokes and making anachronistic jokes is just fine because nobody will relate to that. So how do you make that in the current environment? It is true that the past 15, 20 years, there was a shift in sensitivity and people getting super offended and literally going to comedy to pinpoint something to be offended about. Now, I would say that there are two ways to approach this. From one side, it is a refreshing change because for too long, many people who were dominating, and again, this is starting from the US because, white people had the shows. So they were making the minstrel comedy, which was making fun, of black people and how they act. They're making fun of Indians in the UK, which was very common, of the accent, of everything. So it was going on for too long. So it's from one side, it's refreshing to see that, hey, guys, okay, it's fine, but allow us to make fun of ourselves and not you to make fun of ourselves. So, Russell Peters, he's Indian. He's crashing it. He's just destroying the Indians, but he's Indian. I mean, he has experienced racism in Canada and he's Canadian, but he's Indian-Canadian. So he has experienced racism, has experienced this kind of thing. So that gives him some sort of gravitas. That's one way to approach it. On the other side, obviously, the people who are getting more offended are not the people who are being made fun of. They are the people who are privileged. So usually, it's this trend of white knights, of white privileged knights who really want to find something to be offended about because they want to be like, oh, that wasn't good. I'm not gay, but that wasn't cool about gays. Oh, I'm not black, but that wasn't cool about black. So, and in the end, I've taken part in quite a few courses and seminars. There was one fantastic conference that I took part in Ireland. It was hosted by Facebook, and it was about women empowerment, and it was about women empowerment in the co-working space and minorities. So it was about minorities, sexual orientations and ethnic minorities. And in this conference, the most important point was that there is nothing worse than having people coming from a place of privilege trying to defend somebody. somebody who is underprivileged. So, there is nothing worse than having like a white, straight male in the working space, suddenly jumping in to stand, next to the Muslim black woman. It is a little bit sketchy. And what is happening at this point is you just spread the gap that you cannot do it without me. So the whole concept was that there is this kind of thing that right now, because the people who were privileged up to this point feel a little bit of guilt for everything that's happening, even though, let me be clear, it's not their fault. It's not their fault that 100 years ago, a white guy in the US was making a racist show about black people, okay? But right now, there is this kind of perception that, I need to protect it. And that is actually turning a little bit sketchy because it's a little bit disrespectful for the communities as well. It feels like Black Lives Matter could not exist without the support of white people. And that's not true. That's quite bad. And this is where I notice even in comedy, and while I was reading in forums and while I was doing my investigation, it's usually the privileged who are getting offended. So how do you bring this subject? How do you bring a sensitive subject? The answer is there is no way. If you are doing comedy, chances are that you're going to piss somebody off.
Somebody's going to say just now, man. I really like what you said just now that, usually it's the privilege that gets offended. So guys, if you're watching this, just do a hashtag privilege, okay? So that we're not here to offend you, but it's a privilege to learn. And I think that's a very interesting topic because, but then again, comedy does kind of poke at, one analogy I like to use sometimes, if you take salt and you rub it on skin, nothing happens. It only starts to sting if there's a wound there, right? So comedy is sometimes it's kind of like that. You're just rubbing over there, and it's meant to be fun, it's meant to be cleansing. But if there's a sting there, if there's a wound there, it's gonna sting. You're not gonna feel comfortable with that. And comedy does have that kind of effect, don't you think?
And it should, to be honest. I mean, here many people can challenge me on that, and I'm more than happy to be challenged because when we're talking about art, when we're talking about comedy, we shouldn't be agreeing. If we all universally agree, something is wrong. So I think George Carlin said that. He said that it's the duty of the comedian to find where the line is and deliberately cross it. And I kind of agree with that. You need to be crossing the line. I mean, you cannot create change if you are being polite. Even, and from one side you have Martin Luther King, and from the other side you have Malcolm X. Both of them crossed the line. One politely and by the book, the other more aggressively. But they both crossed the line. So even as a comedian, if you want to make a political statement, I mean, from one side you can just be cracking jokes about, 5 things Greek people do. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. I'm making fun of me. Nobody will get offended. Many people will recognize themselves. We're gonna laugh all together and we're having a good time. But if you want to use comedy as a way, to affect people, to change society or something, then you need to be crossing that line. And for example, I mentioned before Monty Python. Monty Python crossed that line quite a few times. And I believe they should. And again, when you're studying a comedy which is 50 years old, you should not be thinking by the standards, by the current standards of the society today. You should be thinking, how was that back then? And many of the things we do now and we think they're super correct and this is how comedy should be, are going to be challenged by our children in 30 years. And they're not going to be correct. So the sooner you understand that comedy changes and the way people perceive it will change, the easier it will be to just, take it in, have fun, choose what you like to watch and enjoy and what you don't like to watch. And you stop watching it, if that makes sense.
It does. So guys, but we are watching this, if you guys are watching this and hopefully and hoping for a comedy show, I hope you read the title. It's the theory of comedy. So we are here to talk about the theory about it. And of course, we're here for some good laughs and a good time as well, of course. With Stefanos, nothing is ever boring. So he's and there's I think in terms of being comedic, being funny, there's a lot of balance that we can do. So in this case, a question I have next, right, is this is a common thing. I think a lot of people want to ask, how can you be funny? How do you make jokes? Do you think you can answer something as possibly generic as this? But it's a very big question. This is a very big question.
How do you make jokes? I mean, first of all, you need to understand what type of jokes you can make. I mean, I can give a theory behind the joke. So I will tell you how the mind works and why something is considered funny. The moment I present something to you, you know what, Asher? It's your birthday, okay? So I will come holding a present. All right, Asher? So the moment you see the box, in a split second, your mind will start processing information. So the information is, today it's my birthday, Stefanos is bringing a present, probably it's a present for my birthday. So without you realizing it, you reached an assumption. Laughter is when you break that logic and what's happening in your head, because the synapses are sending electricity through that thought process. And if I break that thought process, and instead of a present, it's like, I don't know, and instead of a present, that box inside has my lunch or something, or I just open it up, and a clown jumps in your face. If I break this process, the movement of the current, the violent movement of this electricity in your brain from one side to the other is causing you to laugh. So practically, laughter is the break of logical assumptions of your brain. So if you want to crack a joke, you need to be taking the people through a path, make them create a logical assumption, and then you just, let me try again, and then you just break it. So how this is going to work. So imagine that all the jokes you've heard, suddenly they start by, two people are walking by the river, one people is watching this. So immediately you start creating the story. And in the end, there is an unprecedented outcome or an unexpected outcome. And that is a joke. That is in theory. Now, how you are going to crack it? Well, it depends. It really depends. Sometimes people laugh because of your energy, your enthusiasm. So it has nothing to do with the punchline. It has nothing to do with what you said. You just smile, you just take a pause. I mean, I've seen people, just laughing by just, sitting, and you look at them, you smile, you do something, and then suddenly they start giggling and they start feeling good. And you don't know why. It's your energy, the energy that you emit. Now I cannot see you, Asher. I don't know if you started laughing. So
yes, I did. I did.
Exactly. You see, I didn't say anything. I didn't do anything. I moved a little bit. I projected a little bit of energy. And that is a good basis to crack a joke, which might not have a huge punchline, but it's more about the whole process. And then that's why the sketches are very popular, because you are getting dressed. So the moment I'm getting dressed as a police officer, you immediately speculate that I'm a police officer. So then if you see me act outside of the character of the police officer, I'm going to be like, that's funny. Police officers don't do that. I mean, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I mean, I don't know how many of you have watched it. I think it's hilarious.
Nine-Nine.
I think it's amazing. Nine-Nine. Exactly. It's
Nine-Nine.
amazing. It's amazing, amazing, amazing. And it's all about this. You see the people, they're very serious. I mean, this scene, which went very viral, when they are singing in the interrogation room. That is fantastic, because you have the interrogation room, and you have Sandberg being super serious, and he's like, "Yes, I'm aware, Backstreet Boys," and he just started playing, and then everybody
my fire.
It's just hilarious, because you don't expect it. You see a very serious person doing an interrogation, and the last thing you expect is like, "No, everybody," and everybody singing together. That's very funny.
Yeah.
It's the break of the assumptions, the break of what you would expect to happen in that scene, in a way.
Well, this is gold over here, man. So laughter is the break of logical assumptions in the brain. Did you prepare this slide, or did it just come out of the top of your head?
It's a gift.
It's a gift. It's a gift. And now we have received that gift. Thank you for sharing that. That's brilliant, man. Laughter is a break of logical
You're losing your words, La. What's happening?
I'm losing it. You're taking away all the logical words that's coming out of my mouth. So, okay. So when it comes to comedy, when it comes to that, so one other challenge, I think, when you're trying to break logical assumptions, you are challenging different things. You're challenging the status quo, right? What do you think is the hardest thing about comedy? The hardest thing.
The hardest thing about comedy. So as a profession, I believe the hardest thing is to manage hate. I know very few comedians who are not getting hate. Ryan George is one of the comedians who literally his hate is limited to none. Ryan George has perfected the formula of making fun of movies while satisfying the hardcore fans and the people who hated the movie. I don't know how he's doing it. He's just very good at it. But in general, you need to be ready for that backlash. As I said, if you are, tiptoeing in the comedy and you just never don't touch enough, you will not be memorable. In the end, you're just going to be like a guy, a girl, a guy, somebody who's just cracked a few jokes. We had fun, and then we went home and we forget about you. So eventually, that line might be crossed. And the moment this line is crossed, then you need to be able to stomach people who don't get you. And this is quite challenging. In a live environment, the stand-up comedy environment, that can be extremely frustrating because sometimes it's very, you need to keep a straight face, and people might be extremely aggressive. There are many things that you can do. And the question is always the same. Why do you want to make comedy? If you find your resolve into the why, if you land on your why you want to make comedy, probably you won't care. The first video I ever uploaded on YouTube from my personal channel, I was doing some YouTube projects before I started my own channel, got the most hate that all the videos that I have until now, because I touched on a historical matter. I touched on a historical matter of great pride in Greek society. And many Greeks were really offended because I challenged the greatness of the Greek heritage. By the way, I didn't challenge it. I just corrected, move a little bit the waters, and I just gave some information. I said, guys, I just want to make sure that you understand the facts, or the historical facts, as many historical facts as you can have. And people immediately got offended because they thought that I am against Greece and all this young generation who are not proud to be Greeks. And immediately I got all this hate. But I remember I was actually enjoying it at this point, because I was like, yes, people are reacting. I'm succeeding. I'm pissing off the short-minded people, that they just don't get it, and they are just moving with the Greek flag, waving and saying Greeks are the best. To what are the best? They are the best. What don't you understand? The best at, stacking boxes on top of each other, the best at drinking water, the best at building economy. Definitely not the best at building economy. So what do you mean the best? The best, just the best. So I pissed off these people, and the other people, I opened the room for conversation, and the people who knew the facts just came back to defend, and the people who didn't know the facts but they had an open mind, they were like, oh, yeah, that's interesting. Now I remember. So I felt I succeeded. So you need to be able to stomach that. In other parts of my content creation journey, I couldn't stomach it because I hadn't landed properly on why am I doing it. So it all comes to this. If you know why you're doing it, you're going to be fine, however much the hate might be. If you're not sure, then you're going to feel the insecurity because you do it maybe. I know, I will talk for myself. I know that at this point I was doing it for recognition, to get, this boost of, yeah, you're still good, you're still okay. And that's not how it works. That's not how comedy is and how comedy should be.
Okay, so definitely, I think, especially in social media today, the feedback is fast and furious, right? And I think you mentioned something very good, is that you actually want the reactions. So when you get a certain reaction, it's better that than a joke that just breezes by, right? That there's no reaction, no one's laughing. That's even worse, isn't it?
In the live scene, it can be awkward, but on the other hand, you can play with it. Again, everything is an opportunity. I like to see everything as an opportunity to experiment. So there will be times that you land a joke. I had a friend, we're going together to watch stand-up comedies. He's very good. And literally, he won competitions. He was in a show and everybody died on the stage. Everybody was just collapsing. And then he goes on another stage and it's a different crowd and everybody's... Not much you can do. In the end, even again, I will use the Monty Python again because I've studied a lot Monty Python for many reasons. And they said when they were doing their own tour, they found themselves after a very successful 10, 11 cities tour, they found themselves, I don't remember in which city, nobody was laughing. Literally, nobody was laughing. And I was watching an interview by Eric Idle afterwards, and he said, it happens. So, just get along with it, and then maybe you crack a joke about, your performance. And I'm like, yeah, I know you pay to see a comedy show, but laughing takes energy. I don't know. Now you're a little bit more. Now you're preserving energy. It's all about the cold. Cold is coming. I don't know. Everything. That wasn't even funny what I just said. But that's not the point. The point is take advantage of what's happening. Weigh the crowd. Make a fun joke about yourself. Yeah, I know. You came here. You paid the money, and you didn't expect that. Well, and just try to move along. And in reality, there was one show that I had very few people participating. I was doing a show and there were literally 3 people. It wasn't promoted nicely. So I just cut my show short. I mean, there was no point in staying on stage for 1 hour. I just stayed for 40 minutes and left. So yeah, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
it's going to be challenging. Have you been doing stand-up comedy, Asher? I don't know. I don't remember.
I'm sitting down right now, so I can't do that. So
I know you have been a very good doctor on TV. I know that. So yeah.
yeah, and interesting enough, people tell me, they want me to give them medical certificates, MC, so they can get off work. I'm like, in that role as a doctor, you do not want me to give you, because that role is a brain doctor. You do not want brain issues, man. You do not want brain issues. So okay, so when it comes to this, another question I have for you. Okay, before I get to that question itself, I think when it comes to different comedians, do you have, who is your favorite comedian? I didn't prepare you to. Who's your favorite comedian right now?
Favorite comedian. I really like, so comedian only stand up or in general creator that produces comedy? So, I will give you a list. I'll give you a list of comedians. So the person that I'm anticipating the most is a content creator. He's making video game content, is Video Game Donkey. I like him because he's extremely sarcastic. His sarcasm is on the next level, so much that if you haven't watched a couple of videos, you're questioning, like, is he serious or not? You don't understand. But he's making a huge point. So I really love him. Comedians that I like to watch, stand-up comedians, I really like Russell Peters. I used to watch Russell Peters a lot. I like Jimmy Carr, though it's not my type of humor. I mean, this guy is a machine gun, very offensive, but he's a machine.
Very offensive. Yes.
But it is impressive, really. And I always enjoy the humor of The Lonely Island. So Andy Samberg, since we talk about Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I always enjoy their humor because it's simple, it's to the point. It's very good satire, in my opinion. Very good modern satire.
Okay, so I think my personal favorite was, hey, Karthik, good to see you here as well. Russell Peters, definitely a good one. Yeah, somebody gonna get hurt real bad.
I'm not gonna say who. Somebody.
Somebody. My favorite, I would think it would be Bill Burr. You heard of him, Bill Burr? So Bill Burr is one of the...
Yes, of course.
He's ridiculously
so
good for me. Yeah. Oh my gosh. But it's very interesting because he's able to talk about literally topics such as like a violence against women and stuff like that. And he can joke about such stuff like that, but it's not wrong. I'm like, wow, how did he pull that off? It's amazing how comedians like this can talk about such sensitive topics. Yeah.
Shall we go deep on that? Shall we go deep?
Yes,
on
let's
this,
go for it. Let's go for it.
Shall we? Okay, guys, prepare to be amazed. This will blow your mind. It's structure. Go back to Billy Burr's jokes. Whenever he's about to crack a joke about beat up your women, I remember this one. You'll see that he's starting by talking to the audience and letting them know, it's comedy. I don't know. I mean, it's just comedy. So trying to get in your head that what I'm about to say, I don't mean it. Violence against women is bad, of course, I know. But let's say, so after you have settled that, we're talking about a super hypothetical scenario. This is not what I believe. This is not what I stand for. Cracks the joke. And after you laugh, just throws it back at you again. And I'm like, of course, it's horrible. And that's not the situation. So it's always between, these offensive jokes, he will always put, because it's all about humans, Asher, and it's all about understanding how the human mind works. So we need to make sure that the humans feel comfortable with that, because you don't know, in the crowd, there might be a woman who has been abused. That's not funny for her. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's not funny at all. Now, can the comedian go one by one and ask all the people, excuse me, have you been victim of racism? Have you been called names because of your glasses when you were a kid? You cannot go and do that one by one. But what you can do is, in a way, try to explain your situation. And what I like about Billy Burr is that he's not apologetic. And I feel that especially now the UK comedians are failing a lot of that. The UK comedy is super politically correct. So they're always like, it's just a joke, it's just a joke, it's just a joke. And they move backwards. That's not nice. You are not making a point. Billy Burr is moving forward, telling you, all right, you know what? That's a joke. And, just don't take it seriously. I'm just cracking the joke. And I really like, my friends, if you haven't seen Humanity by Ricky Gervais, I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed that. I know that many people disagree with that. I found it quite interesting. Because Ricky Gervais is the privileged, rich, white, straight, British male. He's in the top of the pyramid of privileges. But he says that, that's the problem. You're never joking with the person. You're never making fun of the person. You're never making fun of the condition. You're making fun of everything that's around. You're not punching up or down. You're just cracking a joke. So he's making it in a very good point. He is aggressive. He is offensive. But I truly believe that this will open the mind in a little bit of comedy. And again, feel free to disagree. If we all agree in comedy, there is a problem. We're doing something very wrong, Asher.
That's true. So, guys, if you're watching this right now, okay, just tag a comment or just share with us who's your favorite comedian. I would love to find out a little bit more who's your favorite comedian, because we're just throwing out names. Yeah, Stefanos. Okay, you definitely, this name over here. Remember this name, Stefanos. Okay, so so it's we went a little bit deeper on, and I really like it structure that I like that he kind of inoculated, since we're in a pandemic period of time, right? He vaccinated the people first that what he's gonna say is a joke, right? And then afterwards he steps them with the joke. So that's very smart. Right?
But let's not get this wrong. I mean, Billy Burr, Jimmy Carr, Ricky Gervais, they're getting a lot of hate, and many people just hate them religiously. They are like, hate them. But that's a style of comedy. It's okay. It's okay to be hated if you're doing this, and other people hate other comedians. That's fine. I truly believe that comedy should be a place for people to disagree as well, because if we all agree, that's not the point. So feel challenged. And I would say, I have a theory. Every time you feel upset, and I do this for myself, every time, my girlfriend comes and says something about me, and I'm like, no, you're not, you're wrong. And I get upset, and I'm like, no, you are wrong. This is exactly the moment that I need to work on myself. So if somebody comes and cracks a joke about Greeks, and I get offended, probably the problem is on me, because there's something in me that this is so important. My universality, my boom, it's so important, but doesn't allow me to enjoy the joke and understand that, hey, it's not like Dave Chappelle, as our friend says, came down and make fun about me personally, or, my culture. So usually when people are getting offended, I'm always saying that, I'm sorry. I understand that might not be ideal. So I apologize. I feel bad if you felt offended. That's not the point. But you should really look into it.
Okay. So I think Karthik over here has another question that I was actually going to ask later, but I'll just bring it over here. So is there anything you won't joke about? And it's interesting because Karthik brought this question over here. So in comedy, is there a line a comedian shouldn't cross in relation to political correctness?
So as I said, I don't know, Karthik, when you joined, but I'm a huge fan of George Carlin's quote that it's the job of the comedian to find where the line is and deliberately cross it. So how do you cross the line of political correctness? First of all, political correctness, let me say this. If we reach the point that we need a police to tell us what we need to say and what we not need to say, then I think the problem lies in education. So I don't know. If you don't understand that it's not nice to make fun. I used to have a girlfriend who was black, so I was introduced to the whole black community and how things are, which blew my mind because, as a white person, I only know them from the movies. So if you go outside and you make fun of the hair of a black girl because they are curly, I don't understand. This is problematic. This is your family and your educational system that should tell you that what's wrong with that. Just because you have straight hair and she has curly hair, what's the fucking problem? I don't know. Am I allowed to swear, Asher?
You've done it, right? What else can I do, right? So like,
so I believe that, especially with political correctness, I don't agree very much because, again, this should be an educational thing. We shouldn't be having laws forbidding us to throw garbage on the street. We should know from a young age that we shouldn't be throwing garbage on the street, if you know what I mean. So personally, if there is a line that I wouldn't cross, it depends. It depends because you don't know the setting. So every joke, as I said, jokes and their impact changes geographically and chronologically. So a joke that will fly very well now might not fly well in 10 years. So it really depends on the situation. So it depends. Am I on a stage that I want to make a very strong point? Maybe I need to cross the line. And I have crossed the line, not only in humor, I crossed the line in meetings with my office. I mean, I do like to cross the line because I believe if we don't challenge it, then everybody will just shut up, sit down, and do nothing. So is there something in particular? I'm not sure. But then again, I mean, you're going to ask me now, I mean, this is the moment that I get very specific questions. So you would joke about rape. So you would joke about, domestic abuse. And my question to this is, well, I haven't thought of making a joke about domestic abuse because it's not something that is close to my content. If for any reason suddenly I find myself wanting to make a joke about domestic abuse, then maybe it's different. But, that's the point. That's the point. When that time comes, I will be able to know. But I do believe that if you want to make a change, you need to cross the line. Because in the end, somebody will say, somebody said it, some other people will get affected, there will be room for conversation. And in the end, that's the point. The point is to get the people out of their comfort zone and start discussing. Some people will start fighting. But again, that's their problem. If they want to fight, if they want just to go back and complain to their families that, oh my God, these people are idiots, Asher and Stefanos are idiots, that's fine. I mean, you went back to your home and you're extremely upset. Whereas you could use this opportunity to see a different perspective and understand things from a completely different point of view, and feel free to disagree. So, yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, and he has another question for you to answer you. So he has this question. So what's your process for coming up with new comedy routines? You feels like it would be very hard to know what jokes to write about next. Is it all drawn from personal life?
I don't do many jokes about my personal life. I know many comedians that do, but I don't do many jokes about personal life. So usually when I was doing my stand-up comedy routine, I would get on a theme. So I was working a lot with European exchange students. So I knew that my jokes back on the day would revolve around stereotypes. So about Greek, Italian, Spanish, French, English stereotypes, German stereotypes. So I was revolving my jokes around that. So, I would take the country, sit down, trying to think, some stereotypes and try to crack a joke about it. So this is how I build out my routines in stand-up comedy. When it comes to content creation, it's very different because I'm doing mainly education. So every time I'm writing, Asher will know that very well because that's what we teach people. We teach structure in video creation. So in my structure, every 3-4 lines, I need to do something. So it must be a joke. So I don't know. So I start writing the script and I want to say, hey, today I met with Asher. We had this live. It was really good. But I got very disappointed because Asher didn't come as a cookie. And I was really expecting him to come as a cookie. And immediately now Asher laughed because he knows what I'm talking about. So
yes.
Every 3-4 lines, you need to crack a joke. And I didn't know what the joke would be until I reached that point. So then I have to sit down and brainstorm. And to be honest, I'm having kind of an issue. If I have to think a lot, usually it will not come. And many times I resort to the tactic that I mentioned before. Again, Karthik, I don't know at which point you came in. So I mentioned before that sometimes you don't have to actually say something funny. You just act in a funny way. Or you just do a dead silence. Or you just being like, yeah, I did it again. And it's not a joke, but if that fills in the part, Asher is already giggling a little bit. I didn't say anything. It doesn't have any context. Now imagine that if there is context. So that can work, I guess.
Okay, definitely. So in this case also, it's a nice, interesting thing we can get into. So being funny in conversations. I think it's also interesting that we brought this up. Just nice. I think it's a very nice segue into it. How do you be funny in conversations? Because imagine if you're talking halfway and you just went silent on me.
That would be a very awkward moment. Let's not do that ever again.
Yeah.
How to be funny in conversation? One word. Listen. That's it. Listen. Because what you do, again, by bringing, in order to make people laugh, you need to bring back to them, right? You need to bring back to them what they said. So you turn it around and you twist it in a way. I believe that you need to twist it in a very polite way. So it's not good to punch down to people. I mean, to just like make fun of them or the situation or everything. But, you just imply something. Or you just to make something seem a little bit bigger. So, you're like, I'm talking with Asher and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so tired. Well, what happened, Asher? I have so much work. Do you know how much I'm working? And Asher is drinking coffee. And I'm like, yeah, I can see. I mean, that must be the third coffee you drank. And I'm like, come on, dude, I'm working hard. But then we just laugh. This is the kind of thing I hear, perceive the situation and crack a joke. And again, making fun with friends is easy because with friends you will feel comfortable and friends will relate to you because you are their friend. They will immediately laugh. When you're in with a group of strangers, I believe this is a huge icebreaker. When you're going to a new group of people and you start by asking questions. And you deliberately take the things they say the wrong way. So what does this mean? You go and you start asking questions. They're like, hey, how are you? Asher? Nice to meet you. You try to open them up. You want to meet them. I mean, that's the point, by the way. The point is to meet the person, okay? And cracking a joke will help you get more comfortable with that person and meet them. Or this could be flirting. They're like, tell me, Asher, what are you doing? Hi, I'm from Singapore. I do this, and this. I'm like, oh, yeah, very interesting. And then as Asher is talking, I will try to find something to deliberately take it in the wrong way. And, I'm also teaching people online. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you must be the only person doing that, of course. I'm like, no, I'm teaching, I'm working with the NAS Academy and we're teaching a lot of people how to create content. So how to sit in front of Zoom. That's a very valuable skill. Yeah, I know, I understand. No, it's fine. So you start cracking and you take it deliberately the wrong way. In a way. So, okay, maybe this one was not a very good example because, Asher, if he's taking great pride of his work, might get a little, hey, are you making fun of my work? So you shouldn't be pushing too much, but then just assert that, okay, I understand, but I've been doing this, it's really brilliant. Tell me more about it. It's the Billy Bird technique. You crack the joke and then you make people understand that, that's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. I want to know more kind of way. But listen. That's the trick.
True. Okay, so being listening is actually the key to be funny, and during conversations because you're interacting immediately. So asking questions and listening, that's a good thing. And then, do you probe with like light jokes first before getting into the heavy jokes? I don't know whether it's weight to jokes. I've never weighted jokes before, but
you must always weight the room. I mean, if you go, there's some times that the room can get very heavy jokes. Some other times the room cannot get jokes. And I said it shouldn't be heavy. That's the thing. It shouldn't be heavy or light because it's like, this is the question that has a binary answer. And I hate binary answers. So is it, are you going to crack a joke about the weather or are you going to crack a joke about my physical appearance? So is it a light joke or a heavy joke? It shouldn't be like that. The joke should be the joke that the environment that you have created, and again, it might be a friendly environment, might be a person I just met. The environment created at this moment can hold. So, that you wouldn't crack jokes about your CEO, but when we are with Satire, and we're hanging out, we're just making fun, for his colleagues, making fun of our content all the time. And that's fine because this is the environment and it's okay. But of course, that joke wouldn't be okay in a meeting, with many other people in the company unless they also knew Satire in a personal level. So having that balance is quite important.
Okay. True. And I think sometimes if the context is taken, if you're taken out of context, then it can be very, very offensive, right? Some of the stuff that's said can be really misconstrued to a completely different topic. It'll paint you in a completely different picture. And that's true. I think it's happened to so many people who are accidentally recorded or intentionally recorded, and then afterwards it was put online, and it just destroyed that person's work, reputation, so to speak. That's a good thing you can mention that. Okay, so we're coming to an hour already. In fact, we just passed the hour, so I think having a lot of fun chatting with you and learning from you. I've learned a lot, especially I like what you said earlier about listening, and also about I wrote it down. Laughter is the break of logical assumptions in the brain. That's great stuff, man. That's great stuff. So,
is this recorded?
so-
Can I claim it if you write it in your book? Can I?
I'll credit you. I'll credit you, and when anyone who actually quotes it, I'll send you a cent.
Let's put a QR code next to it, so you credit me, and they immediately can scan it in the book, and they immediately can go to my channel. Let's do that. You and me, buddy.
Let's do that. Let's do it. Let's make it happen. QR code. Send me the QR code after this. Okay. All right. So now the final before we end this like, because I would love to dig a bit more, but I understand you had a very long day, and I know you need to rest.
Only 12 hours. Now it's 12 hours, and we still have more. It's fine. Let's do this.
He's just lowering. Okay, so one question I have, right? This is one of the ask. If you were to do so, okay, how would you start to impact 1 million people, and what would you impact them with?
So, if you have the opportunity to impact 1 million people, again, I would ask myself the question: why? That's in my head. That is all that matters. Why? Why do I want to impact 1 million people? Or if I'm in front of 1 million people, the question should be, why do I have this opportunity? And most of us have this opportunity because of social media. We have the opportunity to impact 1 million people. So why? Why on Facebook? Why on Instagram? Why on YouTube? And why do I want to do that? So once you answer the why, then you can start moving forward. My why, my question, my answer to this is, why do you want people to do that? Is because I really want people to think. I really want people to not take things for granted. I want them to be outside of their comfort zone. I want to be outside my comfort zone, and I want to laugh and think. That's the thing that I want the most. So I want to impact people, and I start impacting people by giving them stuff to think about, things that they didn't think, and just the mind starts working in different ways. And because the laughter is there, it makes you feel so much better. There's something very interesting. I think, Asher, you have seen the movie Scream. Yeah? The Scream,
Yes, yeah.
The typical film. And most of you, I guess. So exactly this one. So the director said the reason why most of the murders are so silly is because laughter is taking out, the pressure. You're going to watch a horror film because you want to come face to face with your fear. So first you have this scene, you have the knife, and you're like, what will happen? And then suddenly you see the garage door and it's being like broken like a doll. And you're like, what the hell? Because then you relax. And then you have another suspense moment and and then you relax. And in the end, so going through this, you have all the capacity to go until the end and be a winner. Be a winner. Feel that you have overcome your fear. So it's the same thing with education. By making you laugh throughout the segments, you will have the opportunity to think and relax and think again and relax and think and relax until you have again a vivid interest for knowledge. And it's not all going to be cat videos and baby videos. You're going to see something of more quality than that. Nothing wrong with cat videos, but oh my God.
Okay, I think Yongi has an interesting question over here. Being funny can be inborn. And some people have a funny appearance, but by just looking at his face will make you laugh. I really admire these people. What do you think on this?
My question is, do these people feel the same? I mean, I don't know how I would feel if suddenly, I'm going to be like, hi, my name is Stefanos. They're like, in my face. That would be a little bit, I don't know how I would feel about that. So as I said before, definitely some people are more funny. Some people are, more, some people can draw. Some people can crack jokes. Some people understand math. So everybody's coming with more talents. But again, you must always think that, okay, that people make you laugh. Is it something they want? Because it's the same thing in relationships. There are these people, that they go from one relationship to the other, and that's so cool. And then you talk to them in their 40s, and they're like, I cannot have a normal relationship. I cannot have a relationship for more than 3 months. So the same things. You're looking at them, and you're like, oh my God, you're so funny. Just make people laugh out loud. And I'm like, yeah, and I've never been taken seriously. So people come to me. I have a friend like that in university. the sweetest creature. Every time he was opening his mouth, everybody laughed him and we were all laughing. And I remember he was like, yeah, and I can never complain about anything because I make people laugh all the time. So, I'm feeling sad and I need still, he had this incentive, in his brain that he always needs to be smiling and making people laugh. So that's a double-edged sword. That's all I'm about to say.
It is. Okay, so I don't know, do you have a little bit more time for me to ask you one other question before we
Go
to the
on,
final
fire
one?
away.
Yeah, because since you talked about that it being a double-edged sword, right? One of the most famous comedians of all time that took his own life was definitely Robin Williams.
Oh my
Okay,
God.
and so because that was a double-edged sword, what do you think about that? What are your thoughts on Robin Williams?
Oh my God. I still remember the day. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it because I've seen almost all his films and I've seen his stand-up comedies, and then you wait for the next. And then suddenly you think, no more? That's it? That's it, all the Robin Williams we're going to get? I can literally go to a video club and have, we had video clubs back then, and then you got to have all the stuff, all the complete Robin Williams collection. It was horrible. But to be honest, I remember that, it was a matter of time. When you see a person being such a comedian, you do know that they're suffering a lot from the inside. I've seen that so many times. The biggest comedians are people who are really depressed or they're having a lot of issues with themselves. And this is the way to feel better, by making people laugh. That's why he was going all out. That's a theory of mine. Don't take my word for it. I don't have any scientific proof, but I kind of feel when I was watching Robin Williams that in order for the reason why he didn't care and he was just going all out and he never cared, like, how did you do that? Is because when you're having all these thoughts in your head and you have all this anxiety and you have all this pressure, in the end, you don't really care. What would he care about? He wanted to take his own life. Would he care if somebody says, hey, you're not funny, that wasn't funny, your face, you're not good looking? Do you think that could affect him compared to everything that has affected him in his mind? So yeah, double-edged sword and a huge loss for comedy. Huge loss for comedy.
Very true. I think for him, because his when it comes to his comedy, I'm very used to there's being a lesson that's kind of hidden behind every comedic line. So I'm very used to hearing that, and I'm always learning stuff. So to me, what I learned from that experience was that he's been making us laugh his entire life, and then when it comes to his final moment when he took his own life, I choose personally. This is personally. I choose not to see it as that the way I look at it is he chose to give one final comedy, one final joke at the cost of his life, yes, but the lesson behind that was to really be really authentically happy, to be genuinely happy, and I think that was the lesson that I took away from the end of his life. That's personally for me, and I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I mean, could be like that. I mean, the person who cracked the biggest joke, I think, when he died is Andy Kaufman. Are you familiar with Andy Kaufman, Asher?
Yes.
So
Yes.
Andy Kaufman, when he died, first of all, many people didn't even believe he was dead because of the way he was the first troll. Andy Kaufman, for those of you who don't know, was the first troll. Literally, he was going on TV, playing personalities, making people to hate him, although that was definitely not who he was. He was just trolling. So when Andy Kaufman died, there was a video playing in his funeral, and you weren't really sure. I mean, he's trolling us, right? He's not dead. He just went to the Caribbean, and he's just waiting for 10 years to come back again and live the life. So Andy Kaufman was the person who, I mean, I think by now probably he would have reappeared if he was still alive. So probably he is dead. So he cracked the final joke to all of us. It was so funny, and he was making so many jokes that people couldn't believe he's dead.
Okay, Andy Kaufman. So, hey Tristan, good to see you live as well. We are ending. Good to see you, but thanks for
Okay, let's do it again from the top.
Welcome,
Welcome everybody.
time.
How are you? Boom, boom, music.
Yeah, we can go all the way to the top. So, all right, so that's the question. So before we end, this is for the final question, right? So is there any parting words? We talked about death just now, so let's not go to that area. So that's not there. So any parting words before we end this show, and how can people actually reach you?
So I would say that comedy is a very strong tool. It's a very strong tool, and I truly believe it can make your life easier. Be careful when you are using comedy to avoid serious situations. Comedy should not be there to hide from some very serious situation in life. But comedy can be used to make the process of it much better, and it can help you form good relationships with people, with your partner. And in reality, I truly believe that it's the best tool of education, much better than anything else. And if you want to reach out to me, I have my Instagram. So I'm very responsive on Instagram. You can find me at Stefanos Antypas on Instagram. Asher, I hope you have them somewhere. Yes, he does. Oh my God, what a beast. And you can reach me on Instagram. I'm very responsive there. So you can find me there. You can follow me and you can just chat with me. I'm doing some lives also. More than happy to catch up. And you can find me on my new YouTube channel. That's like 6 months of consistency right now with all the COVID thing that happened. I opened my channel, and the moment I opened it, COVID happened. And it was like, and I was making interviews with people outside in the street. As you might understand, that was not possible when the whole COVID thing happened. So yeah, if you come by one of my videos, drop a comment, let me know what you think, and let's discuss more about comedy. Okay?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Stefanos, for your time, man. Really appreciate it. So I think that's it for now. And you just want to wave bye-bye so I can just close the show.
Pleasure, Asher. Cheers. Bye-bye.
See you in a while, man. See you in a while. Okay. All right, guys. Once more, again, if you enjoyed the show so far, please give Stefanos a follow. Give him a like. You just say hi. And Jongin says, thanks, Stefanos and Asher, for the interesting sharing. Thank you for joining the show. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of the show once more. Really appreciate you for coming on and watching the show. If you haven't done so already, please follow me at Asher Au. So I'm available. Yeah, I learned that from Stefanos. Just keeping quiet and just showing the face. Okay, so I'm available to chat as well. So, but again, head over to head over to Instagram. He's very active there, to chat him up, and then to chat him up. Yes. Okay. So I need to talk. I need to end this. Okay. So anyway, this is the end of the show. And yes, thank you from Chaputifonio. Hope I got your name correctly. All right. Okay. So thanks, guys, for joining the show. This is the end of it, and I will see you next time.